Hi guys, this is Reed from Local Dialect, and today I'm going to be showing you a mixing tactic that we use to clean up sounds using very narrow EQ bands to surgically remove dissonant frequencies from a sound. For this trick, we use FabFilter Pro-Q for the most part, and I'm going to be demoing on this bass that we made for iMusic's Blooming, the remix of iMusic's Blooming that we did a few months back. So first of all, let's just take a listen to this on its own. So this is an unmixed version of the track, and right away I'm noticing that the bass is taking up a little too much space in the mix, and it's got some bad frequencies in there, some buzzing, some ringing that I'd like to be able to get rid of if possible. So let's open up Pro-Q, and instead of going in and making wide cuts, I'm going to be making very narrow cuts instead, because I don't want to change the character of the sound too much. I think it's already close to what I want it to be. Instead, I'm going to be doing this, creating narrow bands and sweeping them across the spectrum, looking for those bad frequencies I was talking about, and targeting them one by one. So let me just walk you through that. I'm going to loop on a part of the song where the bass cutoff is higher than it is elsewhere, and solo the sound, and I'm going to double click, create a band in Pro-Q, drag up to increase the gain. I'm going to hold down Control. I think it's Command in Mac, it's Control in Windows. I'm going to click and drag, and that adjusts the Q setting. Get it pretty narrow, yeah. And then I'm going to be using the band solo feature and just sweeping across the spectrum looking for those bad frequencies that I was talking about. What I'm looking for is a sort of hollow, resonant, ringing sort of tonality. It's kind of hard to describe, but really anything that's bad can probably be cut from your spectrum anyway. So, all right, let's get started. Let's go hunting for some bad frequencies. Okay. I think that sounds like what I want. It's kind of ringing, kind of buzzing. I'm going to take the Q all the way up to 40, and I'm going to start adjusting the gain, taking it down until I find a value that I like. The reason I use such a high Q setting is because I want to target that bad frequency and that bad frequency only. I don't want to affect his neighbors because for all I know, those neighboring harmonics could be good harmonics. All right, now I'm just going to loop over and over again and find the gain value that I want. I think that sounds good. All right, now that we have one, let's see if we can find another. I think that's good. All right, again, take the Q all the way to 40 and start adjusting the gain. I think that's pretty good. All right. So now that we have these two cuts, let's take a look at the piano roll view down here. This can be turned on and off by clicking on this keyboard icon in the bottom left. So I'm noticing that the two cuts I made are pretty close to C6 and E6. I happen to know that this song is in the key of F sharp minor, and C and E are not in that key. So I'm wondering what will happen if I drag these frequencies to lock on to the notes exactly. The way you do that is just by clicking and dragging on the node in the piano roll view. All right, now that's locked onto C6. That's locked onto E6. Let's listen to it. I think it sounds better with the frequencies locked onto the notes exactly. It sounds more musical, a little bit cleaner. All right, so now that I've made these two cuts, I could go ahead and extrapolate and say, well, if E6 and C6 sounds bad, then C7 and E7, they probably sound bad too. And then I can go in and double click on the notes in the piano roll view, and that creates a EQ band for me right there automatically, already locked on to the note. So this would take a while for me to do live, because I'd have to go in, create all these bands, select them, drag the Q to 40, and then drag the gain down one by one. I won't do that for y'all here right now. It's going to take too much time. Instead, let's switch over to this Pro-Q that I've already prepared. I've already cut out all the bad frequencies here. You see that I've cut out all the C's and E's across all the octaves that the sound covers, as well as A sharp or B flat. I decided that was a bad frequency as well, apparently. So what I really want you to do is to be able to tell the difference between the sound with these cuts and without these cuts. So first, the raw signal. It's a very subtle effect, but if you listen closely, you'll notice that some of that buzzing, some of that ringing, harsh quality that I was talking about before, it's gone. The sound is a little cleaner, a little more polished, and it's almost like the sound is a little bit louder. Even though we're taking all this stuff away from the frequency spectrum, the sound it's perceived to be louder somehow. And that's because by cutting away these bad frequencies from the spectrum of this sound, the overall mix has more room to breathe, and the good harmonics in this sound have more room to stand out. So this is a pretty powerful mixing trick. Personally, I would do a few rounds of this treatment on important elements, but any element in the mix can benefit from this treatment. My personal approach is to go in and sometimes even just turn off the piano roll entirely and do this frequency sweeping by hand with my ears first, so that I know that I'm landing on bad frequencies that sound bad and not relying too much on the theory in my head. But once I get the few bad frequencies that I want, then I'll just extrapolate, open up the keyboard view, and speed things up by just double-clicking on notes in the keyboard view to create the EQ bands for me automatically. But there are a few things that you need to watch out for with this tactic. Number one, it's really easy to go trigger happy and just cut away too much of your frequency spectrum and lose some character that you wanted to preserve. So a good general strategy is to always go back and double check your work. Turn the bands on and off and make sure that you're not cutting away too much of the character that you want with these EQ cuts that you're making. Another thing that you want to avoid is phase issues in the low end. I personally kind of avoid doing this anywhere below 100 hertz, just because down there you're more likely to run into phase issues, especially on a low end heavy element like the bass. But apart from that, that's pretty much it. I hope you get something useful out of this, and hope this helps make your mixes a little bit cleaner. If you want to learn more about EQing, we're hosting a workshop with Pyramind next month called EQ Like a Pro, where we're going to be covering tricks like this, as well as going over things like complementary EQing, linear phase EQing, mid-side EQing, and we're also going to cover a bunch of different EQs that we use for a bunch of different mixing purposes. And we've had a lot of fun preparing the material for this workshop, and we'd really love to see you there. But until then, stay tuned for more tutorials coming from us soon. Cheers, guys!
The Pyramind Mentorship Network connects you to experienced professionals for truly customized private training in music production, sound design, music business, and more. Use our scheduling tool to select the type of training you want. Pick your mentor. Find a day and time that works best for you, then book your session. Your appointment will be confirmed instantly. Study only what you want. Progress at your own pace. Pay as you go. And do it all from the comfort of your home or studio. Our global network of industry experts are here to help you. Visit pyramind.com/mentorship to get started.